That's a good question. As I've said for 5 weeks now, we've liked how we've been playing. So, and I do believe that, and I've been preaching this to the guys, that if the process is right long term, wins end up taking care of themselves. And, our process has been pretty good for last 5, 6 weeks in terms of our practices, our team play, our defensive numbers have been better. And so it was nice, obviously, to get a little more rewarded in the last 3 games. But then you just got to keep fighting for it.
How good was Zach Metsa Saturday?
Yeah. Metsa was, he was excellent. We're in a tricky spot right now with we just have too many players at every position. And so there's hard decisions, and there's a lot of things that go into that in the American League. It's not always as simple as it is at other places with that. But what I tell guys like him is you play in such a manner that you give us no choice sometimes. That you have to keep guys in, and he was excellent. His offensive play was dominant, but he also defended really well. He looked. That's a high-level game, too. Obviously, Cleveland's the best team in our division right now, and there's 11,000 fans, and he looked a lot like he looked at Quinnipiac last year, where he was in total control of the game.
You just talked about the amount of healthy bodies. It feels like all season we've been asking, how do you manage a team that's marred by injuries? Well, now your team management is just as difficult, maybe more because you have a roster that's frankly loaded with talent.
Well, it's more difficult to manage when you're healthy in this situation. When you have injuries and call-ups and your lineup's depleted, sometimes it's hard to win, but it's not hard to manage. Guys are getting more ice than they can handle, and players love that, right? So that's easier almost to build a team mentality, chip on your shoulder. We're in this together. Our backs against the wall. This situation's hard because you have very good players that all probably should be in the lineup quite a bit, if not all the time, that have to be out, and nobody likes being out. Guys are trying to get to the NHL. They're trying to extend their career in the American League, all those things, and so this is much harder to manage. A lot more conversations need to be had.
Is it even more difficult with a game coming up like Saturday where, everybody wants to play all the time, but that's such a marquee event?
Yeah, I think it's more difficult for a couple of reasons. One, we have a few weeks this month that we don't have a 3 and 4. 3 and 4s are easier. You can get some of the guys in the games on the back end of it. But then, you have an outdoor game. Obviously, everybody wants to play in the outdoor game. It just isn't possible. It just is what it is. And as a coach, you hate that because, you want to put your players in positions to be successful. You want to help put your players in, they've earned the right to be in these big type of moments. But that's part of the job, and you have to manage it the best you can.
You grew up in Minnesota. Outdoor hockey has kind of taken the game back to its roots. What memories or experience do you have of being a part of a game outdoors?
Yeah, outdoor hockey, I think for all of us, even at my age, still brings back your best memories as a hockey player. I grew up on an island in the Mississippi River, and me and my brothers would be out there in the back channels of the Mississippi skating. On the right years in Minnesota, sometimes there's not as much snow in Minnesota, but it gets really cold where you could skate for miles. And we'd have games, we'd just go skating. But also in my town, you'd go up, your parents would drop you off at the park, and you had these in Minnesota, a lot of times the cities, manage really nice outdoor rinks, and they keep them, and there's warming houses, and you'd be up there with your buddies playing shinny hockey for hours. Those are absolutely, it's where you fall in love with the game. It's where you get a lot of your creativity. It's where you get some of your competitiveness of, sometimes you win the game, you get to stay on the ice, right? And so, you want to win because you want to keep playing. And so fond, really great memories of playing outside.
What do you think this upcoming game will mean to you personally, having never coached in that role?
I've said this before, but I just guess I don't really look at it that way. I look at it what it means to our team. It's a really cool moment for our group to get to play in a marquee event like that in a great city. I went for a run in Charlotte last year before our game, and the rink was up, and there's like a youth hockey game playing in there, and I brought a smile to my face, thinking that's a pretty cool place for an outdoor game. You're right in the middle of the city, the skyline's behind you. It's going to be a cool opportunity.
That last game, what a great comeback that was. So that's a good kind of game for team bonding and building.
Yeah, I think that team bonding within the game. I think a lot of team bonding is done away from the rink. But I think team bonding from a team belief standpoint comes through going through adversity together and staying with each other and coming out the other side. And we've had some adversity that we've fought through. And in that game in particular, I thought we were playing really good, yet down 2 goals a lot of times in that game. There was never a point in that game that I didn't like the way we were playing. So, but yet we found ourselves down 3-1, 4-2, and 5-3. And those are easy games to then go away and not find a way to get back into it. So I really like the resilience of the group, that we stayed with it. We found a way to obviously get to overtime. It would have been nice to win, but obviously to get it to overtime and get a point was important.
Things were going well. And went well for most of the game, except for that 5-minute segment or whatever in the first period. We gave up 3 goals. It seems like that happens not often, but it happens on occasions. How do you eliminate those 5, 6, 7 minute downtimes?
I mean, you're never going to dominate a game for 60 minutes. So the other team gets paid and they're trying to win too. And so I don't think we played poorly in those 5 minutes. So, sometimes things happen. Sometimes pucks bounce the wrong way. Sometimes, goalies make a save or don't make a save or whatever that is. And that influences those moments, So to me, I don't think we've had very many moments that we've been poor for extended periods of time in the last 10 games or so. Earlier in the season we did. And so to me that, that's part of the game, and you have to respond to those moments more than try to not have any of those moments.
I agree. There were just a couple of bad bounces there. It seemed like it.
I mean, sometimes you're playing a good team and they're going to make some plays. And hockey is a game of chance a little bit too. That you can play really well or really poorly. You can play really well and lose in our sport more than in other sports, and you can play really poorly and win in our sport more than in other sports. And sometimes that's chance, and sometimes goaltending really impacts those types of things.
With Comrie coming down, what's your plan for rotation moving forward? Will you continue the 50-50 split you had for most of the season, or will you keep 3 goaltenders?
That's a good question. I think that we believe in all 3 goalies. And with Comrie coming down, Comrie probably will get more of the share than just a split. But that's a week to week. I think that you can map out these big plans, and when Devin Levi came down, you had kind of a plan. You talk with management about, okay, this is what the month looks like. Well, then that changed a week later. Pekka Luukkonen got sick and Levi was gone, and that's out the window, right? So in the American League, it's hard to plan more than the week because your roster is so fluid. So I think you look more week to week. Last week, it certainly made sense for 50-50. He hadn't played in a month, and it was a back-to-back with a 4.5-hour bus ride in the middle of it. So that made sense last week, and then you just kind of look this week and then just kind of go week to week with that.
Patrick, go ahead.
Patrick?
Yeah, Seth, just, with Comrie, he's, obviously a really kind of upbeat, optimistic guy, but, he's had a tough go of it lately, and he comes down. How do you how do you manage a player like that, who's had, some real career adversity, kind of in the midpoint of their career here?
I think, and we've had a few of those guys this year. I think the first thing is tell them to just have fun playing again. That's number one. Get them to enjoy being at practice and getting to play and be in the lineup more often, and just find that joy and love and passion that brought you to the sport in the first place. And usually when that happens, their game goes with it in a good way. We all started playing the sport because we love it, and it's fun, and it's something you love doing and love competing with your teammates. And so, you try to remind them of that, encourage them to not put too much stress on themselves. You don't need to try to get back to the NHL today. Just enjoy being at the rink, have fun with your teammates, and find that love and joy of playing the game again.
And just, you mentioned fun, and just to kind of expand on the outdoor, game, what are some real specific things you remember, growing up in a place like Minnesota, playing on the ice there outside, and, and everything that kind of shaped you to where you are today?
Yeah, I like I mentioned earlier, I just remember like when I think back about being a kid in hockey, I remember my teammates. I remember the teammates that I had and how much fun I had playing with kids in my hometown that I'm still friends with a lot of them to this day. Those are things I think about. When I think back about being outside, like I think about hockey, I think about playing on the Mississippi River with my brothers. I think about, epic street hockey games in our driveway, and where you're in Minnesota is a little different. You're a lot of times not the NHL players. A lot of times you're imagining you're the local high school team and you're in the state tournament in front of 20,000 people. And so those are the memories I had. We grew up a little bit rural. We had horses. So our first net that I ever played on, we drag hay bales down to the river and use hay bales stacked on top of each other as our goals before we had a net of our own. And those are just great memories of hours and hours and hours of playing with your buddies and your brothers outside, either in the driveway or on the frozen river.
And just, I guess sort of on a, more general topic, that creativity that you were allowed to kind of really, learn, has some of that been lost, maybe with the game being more structured now for minor hockey at younger and younger ages?
That's a good question. I mean, I think that every generation's kind of like, well, when we were younger, it was better because, and I guess I try not to look at it that way. I think kids these days aren't very different. They grew up differently, and so there are differences, but man, I don't know if the game has ever been more creative or more talented or faster than it is right now. So while my gut says yes, I think there's some lost creativity from unstructured play. I think unstructured play is really important because you get to experiment without the fear of ice time being taken away and things like that. I do think that small games being introduced into practice at such an extensive level throughout youth hockey in the world helps replace that a little bit. And then I think that the skills coaches and the things that the kids are doing now has added a different level of creativity than maybe we had from playing on the ponds.